Okay, so now it's recording. So welcome everyone who looks at this little Fireball stream, the first Fireball stream, ever. And because I'm a dick and I haven't managed to make a Twitch account, we are doing it here on Google Hangouts. But that Hi Mephisto, but that's totally okay because it's not a lot of us here and it's an only small writing contest. But we have cool prizes and one super cool secret prize we will, you know, announce when the first when the first winner will be there. So I guess we are ready to start. So I will share my screen now, and we will go over each piece just very quickly. It will be very short, like 2 to 3 minutes, and we will just discuss it because there are a few like uh, super funny editions. So I'm going to present my screen right now. Okay, you should be guys able to see the first story. Is it right? So
It's still your face.
all right. So this is by Reckless Anims. Do you want to start, Tommy?
Yeah, sure. So this was one of the later submissions, but the good thing about this was that I had a good balance between exposition and player involvement in terms of like world building. So particularly when you're starting off a campaign, you don't want to just throw your players right into it and like ask them to introduce themselves. You sort of want to introduce the world, I guess, at least in my opinion, because you can sort of develop a bit of like intrigue and excitement in the world and get the players involved in it in a little bit. It reads really well. It reads like a writing hook really, really well. Not like a few of the submissions, which have sort of just been a brief synopsis of what their campaign was going to be, which is a big plus. And unfortunately, I thought it could have been expanded on a little better because I thought it left the world a little bit directionless with sort of like a mass plague, and there isn't really much going on in terms of like antagonists in terms of who the overarching villain or like overarching theme could have been. Instead, it's sort of just there's this big play going on,
Yeah.
and that's sort of about it. And I'm not really sure where it would go from there. But I suppose that's just the nature of writing hooks. You can't really expand that much upon your idea. But I just feel like it could have,
Yeah.
yeah, could have been expanded on a bit more.
Yeah, currently it's like you are fighting with some kind of virus, and that's all over the news. I'm not sure if like this was like 2 weeks ago, right, or 3 weeks ago,
Mm-hmm.
when this was sent. So it's more like, yeah. So what's next? And what I've noticed, I'm not sure if the Reckless Anims saw a Critical Role the second campaign. I don't know if you see it to me. Uh,
I've watched the first 2 episodes, I think.
Yeah, and I think in the first episode, in the end, there's like this fight, and they're in the circus, and one guy kind of like explodes there, and he's this monster, and it really reminded me of this thing. But overall,
Mm-hmm.
I'm completely agreeing with you. There is like no like not clear what should I do now except the fight in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and also one more thing, there here is the here's the information about the plague, and here's the information about the mist, and I feel like these are like two topics. Maybe one of it, probably the mist, is kind of like a redundant, like not necessary at all. You can just focus on this and work more with the second topic there. But that's like all by me.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
Oh,
Moving on to the next one.
okay, let's move it. Rodan by Q-John. I'm not sure if I'm spelling this correctly, but Q-John.
I don't think we pronounced the title right either. Oh, yeah, no, actually. With this one, I really like the manipulation of like traditional mechanics with the way that it talks about magic and mages. So with all players having to start with like martial classes, but then multi-classing into different sort of spell casting classes, which no other submission really did. That was sort of the only one that really played with the rules a little bit and then made it sort of a bit more unique in terms of like what the gameplay would be. Unfortunately, with this one, I thought it didn't really read like a writing hook. It was sort of just a brief synopsis or like a DM guide on how to play this campaign.
Right.
Which, yeah, it's sort of like the main idea of this challenge is to sort of write a brief, like writing hook for like a DM to speak and then draw in their players with. But this one sort of just reads a bit like a brief summary of what the overall campaign would be and then how it would play out, which is not quite what we were going for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel like I'm reading, some basic description of a lore, which I can think it would be like interesting world to play in, but again, but like survive. That's a hook of every campaign, I'd say.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but as you said, I like the mechanics there. Definitely good work. Would be cool to make there really like some kind of specific adventure, John. And yeah, I think that's where we can move on.
Cool. Just one more thing actually,
Yeah.
because with this specifically, the reason I feel like I have a bit of a soft spot for it because whenever I try to create a campaign, I always sort of mess around with the rules a little bit in terms of like social structure and then how the classes work. Because the most recent campaign I've been trying to write is classes are sort of broken down into they're sort of clumped together in groups, and then those groups are based on their deities, like their gods. And then you pick a god, and then you subclass into one of the classes, and then it just changes how it's played. So I feel like I have a bit of a biased perspective of that one because I like doing that myself, but yeah, anyway.
Yeah, I understand totally. Okay. Short strings in sure hands by Andrew Spike. So what did you think of this one?
I really liked I really liked the story because it sort of goes into like a corrupt king controlled by demons, like working alongside of them. And I doubt any of you would have read this book, but it really reminded me of a series called Throne of Glass, which has got a bit of a similar sort of idea going on. The fact that demons have sort of come into the mortal world and now they've corrupted our king, or like working with a king to try and take over the rest of the continent.
Mm-hmm.
It reads really well like a hook as well. It's sort of like reading it in my head and reading it out loud. It sounds exactly like something a DM would be speaking to their players. And it's also written quite well as well. I found there's good use of like grammar and full stops, and it just flows really nicely.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can agree. What I liked in the beginning was there was 16 years long period when the kingdom haven't seen the light of the day, and that just seemed like an interesting idea. Being 16 years in darkness, it's by itself, that's kind of interesting hook. And then when you start building on it, maybe one gun, I thought it would maybe like too many fractions at once. It's it was like you try to like put this whole large body of work into 300 words, and I got little lost of on the fractions, who is who, but I guess it's great. I like it.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
Okay, let's go to the Blacky Beast by Mephisto, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. This one I felt like started off a bit too quickly. Like I can't exactly imagine a DM sort of starting off a campaign in this way by like sort of jumping straight into dialogue and in such like intense way. I may be wrong though, because I've never personally experienced something like that. But other than that, it reads a bit more like a novel than I would expect it to a DM to speak it out loud. In terms of just the dialogue and the way that it's sort of structured, I can't really imagine anyone like verbally sort of describing this world. But it is it does have quite interesting methods of world building, I'd say, with like Priests of Soul and stuff. I found were like sort of like the more interesting parts of it, because it's like it's really quite good to have a story hook, a bit of exposition, a bit of world building to sort of say this is what you're kind of expecting in this world, and how it's a bit different from other adventures that you might have been in. And then, yeah, the Clergy of Soul being Secret of Folk and having strange power over fire is obviously going to be quite a central aspect in the campaign. And I quite like how they included that in the hook, because it sort of, yeah, that's that excitement or interest in the campaign and sort of wanting to take it further.
Right. Yeah, but I want like well, I kind of like the like it's like nice actionable start. With like most of the campaigns start with okay, you are on the road heading this way, or in it's not always or most of the time so actionable. So that's definitely original. But I think the fire as a weakness thing maybe not so so original, because I don't know, but I feel like fire is always the weakness. You can just
Yeah, no, I know what you mean, because like I have experienced a lot of that, where like in pop culture, fire is sort of like that thing that scares monsters away, or something like that.
Yeah. Well, I wonder if there will be a campaign where it's like the weakness might be like I don't know, maybe water or just something silly. Oh no, but overall, I like it from the and what I would add my 2 cents is the last sentence. As I look around the battle with the creeping despair, and I realize that we have lost a city. I feel like that should be written like everything should be written like in a second person, like it would be you look around the battle and the creeping despair, you realize you lost the city. I'm not sure if I understand this correctly, but yeah, it should be like in a second person point of view.
Cool.
The Great Disappearance by Sputstup.
Yeah, this one I really like, because it is written really, really well, and again, it flows really nicely. So there's not really any moments where I feel like things like full stops or commas or anything like that are really overused, because it doesn't like break up the dialogue of like the DM speaking. It sort of just continues quite well. Again, it is quite vague in what's going on, which again isn't a bad thing, but it sort of makes it kind of difficult to understand. Where it leads into, and there isn't any dialogue, which I usually like to see in story hooks. But again, that's really not a criticism of it. But yeah, the main advantage of this thing is how well it's written, I'd say, because it's structured really well in terms of like how everything's introduced and like the exposition, and it also leads quite well into player involvement at the very end, where it starts right off into combat, which is always good. It really throws the players and keeps them on their toes.
Yeah, totally. I also like this one is like the initial setup is like one village, because there is sometimes there is a tendency to starting describing the whole world, but when you start with something smaller, you can focus more on the detail, and you can kind of describe the world and the large settings on the details of the small village, and it's, I think, easier to start the hook. Darren's what I also like there is it's kind of like mysterious. You came to this village, it's empty. What happened? And now, yeah. So this is good one. I like that one as well. Into the Dark by Asmodeus.
Cool. Yeah, this one had a really, really great balance between sort of exposition of the world in terms of like the Black Mountain and like the sort of prison, or like the Black Pit. I don't know how to pronounce it, Gale there, and player involvement. So it also has a really good balance between dialogue, sort of into the middle of the piece, which there isn't much dialogue, but again, it sort of adds to the world building with the phrase "Don't trust the water."
Oh yeah.
So it's sort of a bit like. It sort of adds a bit of like intrigue, a sort of bit of confusion, a bit of like excitement about if I was playing this campaign, I'd probably be the first one to touch the water, if I'm being completely honest. But yeah, it's just there's not really a moment in this piece where I'm sort of not excited to see what's going to happen in terms, because it sort of just keeps you on your feet. It's sort of very fast paced, and then it leaves you off with sort of this mysterious sort of scenario where you're not really sure where you are, but you're expected to sort of explore, and then what you're going to find probably isn't going to be very nice or very fun to be around.
Yeah, for me, this almost like read like a book. I was instantly hooked by the first two paragraphs, and when the guy say "Don't trust the water," that was like, oh my god, because I have read on Reddit some advices to how to run Curse of Strahd, which is a campaign we are currently running in Fireball every Monday, and there was a paragraph about how to make things scary, and you can make a thing really scary when it's like mysteriously weird, when you give some personal traits to otherwise standard objects. So the book in the Curse of Strahd, it tells you like tell the players there are trees all around them, and it feels kind of like they are looking at them like down there, and they are trying to touch them with the branches. And I think this is what the author did here. Don't trust the water, because uh, it can have like more meaning, like maybe the water is poisoned, but it can also mean there is some like water demon, and now you are at the darkness in the end, and you don't know. So this is kind of like this. So this is really spooky, and I think this was like really good work.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
Okay. This one is named Fireball Entry, which I guess it's not an official name of the hook, and it's by G. Noster, and I'm not sure if I'm spelling this correctly, but here it is.
This one I sort of gave a placeholder title because it didn't have one so I called it the Siege of Windvale because the village of Windvale seemed to play a pretty important part of this hook. But from my first impressions of reading through the piece, I sort of saw massive potential for really deep and complex NPC characters, because a big part of the campaign is sort of having to fight against like this devilry and all that sort of stuff. And it seems like there's going to be a lot of opportunities for like sort of diplomacy in the way that you talk, in the way that you get involved in the kingdom and sort of the people within the kingdom. And also the settings, so the overworld and I guess hell sort of adds to that exploration element where you can really get really deep into this campaign. It's something that could go on for a very long time, and so it just keeps players interested, I guess, in the campaign with adding all these new locations. Because most of the time I find that when I'm playing a campaign, I'll start to get a bit disinterested when we're just in the same location for a very long time, because it just feels like we're sort of restricted. There was a bit of overusage in the full stops that sort of broke up the flow of the story, I'd say. It sort of just, made it very jolted, I'd say. But that's just a bit of a constructive element, which doesn't really take away from the originality or playability of the hook. Hook.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I agree. Maybe my only comment here is I'd like, maybe I'd be interested on some specific case. How do heroes got together, decided to fight against the tyranny, to have there something more personal, some but that's the only thing I really have about this one. Otherwise, it feels like you said, like interesting world building.
Mm-hmm.
I guess we can go here. Intellectual property alert, but that's Dorian, Tomb of the Dorian Gray. So what do you think?
Yeah, well, the first thing I noticed, obviously, about this is that it takes sort of inspiration from the really classical novel, The Picture of Dorian Gray, which many of you probably wouldn't have read, and I won't go into it because it'll take too long. But for me personally, it really sort of made me were maybe quite interested to see how they incorporated the sort of themes into the picture of Dorian Gray into this hook, because in the picture of Dorian Gray there is this portrait that basically reflects the main character's sort of inner self, and it's obviously quite different to what he expresses himself to be. But in the story hook, it sort of mentions this sort of hidden treasure, which I assume is going to be the picture of Dorian Gray, and that really adds to this sort of unique. Sort of makes the campaign more unique, I'd say, because it's just not an item you'd expect to see in a D&D campaign.
Yeah, exactly.
And because it would just sort of expose the players, I guess, inner selves, and it would really shake up the campaign, I'd say. And it uses really good language as well to draw in the players into the campaign environment, and sort of like in the way that it provides some exposition, just the way that it's structured, sort of broken up into 4 sections, and it's got good dialogue as well, and use of accents, which I tried doing in my reading through of this. So it basically says to be read and imagined in the access of Alexei Stukov, brackets Russian accent. So I had a bit of trouble with that, and then towards the end I had to also do a posh British accent in my reading through. But again, I really like that creativity. It sort of, I feel like it would sort of like, it'd make it a bit more fun to read through, I'd say, and it'd be good for the player enjoyment as well, having their DM just do these stupid accents.
Yeah, right. I like these like little barracks, which makes the campaign special. Hey, just out of curiosity, were you able to read that in your mind in the Russian and the posh British accent?
You want me to read that in the Russian and British accent?
Yes, please.
Oh.
Just a paragraph,
I'm trying to think about which one I'm better at. God. I feel like I'm much better at reading this thing in my mind than I am going to be out loud.
No pressure if you.
Let me think about how I'm going to do this. I've already sung for this Discord. Let me. All right. I'm gonna actually butcher this Russian accent, but here we go.
Oh, go for it.
Many have experienced the atrocities that have taken place in the Forgotten Realms. None more so than the inhabitants of Baldur's Gate. Oh God, yeah, no. Cannot. I can do it in my head, but absolutely not out loud. Oh boy.
We are in Prague. That's pretty close to Moscow. No, not that close actually. We are closer to Paris, but maybe I have something in my Slovakian roots. Many have experienced the atrocities that taken place in Forgotten Realms. Not quite much, but well. Anyway, I was I was kind of Tomb of Dorian Gray. Well, there will be something Victorian, and then I read the first the first line, and it was Forgotten Realms. Second line Baldur's Gate. I was like, what the hell, It was pretty surprising, but yeah, as you said, original. And one more thing I really liked was the saving someone, the theme of the adventure. So they'll go there or they'll check out what happened to the other guys, and suddenly you have a strong hook, because you want to just know what happens to somebody, and it's pretty specific and pretty clear to the players. So props for that.
And this is the last one.
Yes, so that's from Nebula, Blinded by Peace.
So my first thoughts on this was that the city of Recopolis, which is where this place takes, sort of seemed like a fantastical representation of what North Korea would be, and the fact that it's like a very harsh dictatorship where most of its population sort of refused access to information regarding how bad.
Lamont, we are just talking about you. Just for you to know, we are just talking about your piece. Sorry, you can continue to me.
Okay. And in terms of originality, there's sometimes there's some ideas which I think have cropped up before in TTRPG landscapes, but the idea of champions and sort of exiled beyond the city worlds, I think breaks the mold a bit. With champions specifically sort of adding a real structure to how the campaign proceeds. Sort of if you want to get past a certain point, you have to beat this champion, and then that sort of just keeps increasing intensity and getting harder and harder until finally it's like the final boss, which is like the dictator Recopolis, which was definitely my favorite bit of it. Is just the fact that it's very. I feel as if the campaign would be quite structured. Like, it would obviously allow room for player creativity. However, I don't think there'd be any moments where the players would sort of be at a loss of what to do and where to go.
Right. Yeah. Well, I really think, when you, because to structure a campaign, it's kind of hard, I think, or at least some long campaigns, and having kind of this material structure around the city, the walls and beating the champions, as you said, it's kind of it's easy to navigate through the campaign, and what's next, and it's almost like a gamification for the campaign, and I kind of like it. What I was thinking of when I was reading the first half of the hook was the Attack on Titans. Do someone know the anime?
Attack on Titans, yeah, I've watched that.
Yeah, because you go beyond the walls, and there are these creepy, huge humanoids. They can just eat you and your mom and your family, and then you become the Titan yourself. But I don't want to spoil anything. Yeah, that was fun, and I was also, but I was curious about the big bad evil guy, or what's his motivation? Why is he doing it? Or maybe just to elaborate a little bit more on the Lord r00se, if I understood correctly. That's the BBEG. But otherwise, pretty nice concept, nice lore, good work.
Cool. Right. That's all of them. So will we go into the top 3?
Oh my God, there was 31 comments. I haven't seen any. I'm so sorry, guys. Yeah, I think it might be a good time to announce, or maybe choose to announce the third place. So, do you want to take the honors?
Sure. So number 3 was Short Strings in Sure Hands by Angel Spike.
Woo! So yeah, so Angel Spike, I will just tell you what you are going to get. It was a roll, right? And that's a roll of, and I'm just scrolling right to the tavern, and we talked a lot today, so it takes a while. Oh no,
that was the cultist roll?
Yeah, it was cultist. A cultist roll. Well, not good, not terrible. But yeah, clap. So congratulations.
We'll give you that roll.
Okay.
So, cultist. There you go.
Okay.
Got a nice new color to just to flex on everyone. All right. Number 2. Excuse me. Number 2 was, where is it? Tomb of Dorian Gray.
Yeah.
By Dark Theme Baymax.
Yeah.
So yeah, I really like that one. Probably because, again, it did sort of incorporate elements from other sort of pop fiction, but it was just really well written, good dialogue. It was nice exposition, and just it flowed really nicely. It's exactly sort of what I'd expect DM to sort of say. It didn't read like a plot synopsis or a novel, read like a story hook.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think that one was a knight roll.
A knight.
For the
Dark Team Biox, or how the nickname is spelled, is knight now. But the main question of the night and the evening, and why we are all here, is who is gonna be the gladiator, the first place who gets a surprise reward, which I'm going to announce after we announce the winner. But I'm wondering, guys, who do you think it should be? Use the comments right there. Or maybe who do you think it might be?
Someone turned right at the end.
Okay, someone. Yeah, I guess. Okay, we have a first we have a first guest. Anyone else?
Into the Dark.
Tomb of the Rodan, yeah, but it was second, so already done. Yeah, all right. Let's not make this any longer. It's Into the Dark by Asmodeus. We really think it's it's a great hook. We like it a lot.
Yeah, it was definitely my favorite one to read, purely just because I felt things like don't trust the water, little things like that really added to sort of the world building and like the creativity of the writing, sort of just adding little like nuanced details about the world and sort of like adding to its sort of three-dimensional nature and just making it more feel more alive. And just the mysteriousness of it and like that element of fear also really applied well to the Gothic horror theme. And that's why we think it would be number one.
Yeah, totally. Number one. It was great work, and so now I guess it's time to to announce that the special prize. And I'm sorry, that it's not super celebratory here behind me. I was hoping I could be in the office, but it's Saturday midnight, and we have a lot of virus outside, so I'm just at home. Well, anyway, the prizes. The There are actually two. The first prize is early access to to Fireball Alpha, and you don't even have to back us on Kickstarter or anything. Once we have Alpha ready, you just get it, and for as many players as you want to play with you, and we will be like super excited about any work you will do there as a game master. What kind of adventures you will make. How your maps are going to look like. Because that was like great work for you, and you have a talent for these kind of adventures. So that's early access. And the second thing, Into the Darkness seems like some nice cool adventure. And if you would be interested, hey, let's start working on it. Let's put it in the campaign. In the campaign settings, in the community tab in our Discord, and maybe let's elaborate on it a little bit more, and maybe in a few months it can show itself on the Fireball platform itself. So these are just my two, and obviously now you are a gladiator and you have my bow.
Cool. That's it. So all of you guys have your ranks now. Asmodeus has got his early access, which it's pretty nice. I feel like if we had announced that originally, a lot more people would have entered, but it also would have meant a lot more work for me. But so this is like the first of many challenges, we hope. There might be one more before Kickstarter releases, but don't bank on it because it takes a lot of time to mark these things, and they generally last about 2 weeks in terms of people submitting them, and then us marking them and getting around to sort of presenting the winners. But we'll try and get another one going before the Kickstarter launches.
Yeah, Frank, that would be awesome. We'll definitely think about something cool you guys would like to create. Yeah, let's perceive this one as like a training challenge or something. For the next time, I will think of the special prize sooner, so it will be even. But when we started this challenge, there was like 350 people. Now it's 700, and we plan to roll more money into marketing, and we hope we'll get soon to 1 or 2,000 people, and it will definitely get more interesting. Thank you, Thomas, so much for everything you've done for organizing the challenge, having the idea in the first place, and then executing it properly and having fun here, and doing the notes. It's a lot of work, and it really helps us a lot because me and the guys, uh, we are just swamped with the work regarding the Kickstarter, the trailers, developing the alpha, painting the cinematic trailer regarding the Chris. So big thank you to you. You have my second bow here. Thank you.
Of course. yeah, so I guess that concludes this sort of live stream.
Yes.
And thank you for the people who came and watched. I'm not quite sure if we have a recording of this.
Yeah, we do actually. So
Cool. All right.
Now I'm ending this recording. Thank you for all the people who will watch this in the future. The present was better, but future is good too. I'm stopping this recording.